Hello, I'm Pastor Rob, and welcome to Pastor Rob Presents Fun with Flagons. Obviously, this is a spoof of the running gag that was on the show The Big Bang Theory called Sheldon Cooper Presents Fun with Flags. For those of you who watched that show, it's a really funny bit where the character Sheldon Cooper would go on and highlight a different country's flag each video and explain the different colors and all that fun stuff. And it was his way of being a big flag nerd. Well, I thought I would do something similar here and do a fun with flagons as a play on words, to highlight different liturgical items we use in worship. Flagon is actually is one of those liturgical items. We don't use them on Sundays. It's a thing used for communion. I'll explain it more in a future video if I can find a flagon in our church. But this is just going to be a semi-regular series. It won't be every week, but I will demonstrate different liturgical items we have. Some that are very commonly used, some that are not commonly used, and some that I want to introduce into the church, like today's example. So keep watching, because I'm going to explain to you one of my favorite liturgical items that is not often used in churches today. So today's feature for Fun with Flagons is a liturgical item known as the censer. You probably have seen these in Catholic churches, maybe the Orthodox churches. Some high church Lutherans use them. I hope to start using this one here fairly soon. I actually just bought this one not long ago. And it is used for incense. One of the things in worship is that worship should engage all five senses. It engages our sense of sight with just the sort of like the beauty around us here in the sanctuary, the stained glass windows, the woodwork, the banners, the liturgical arts items. So that engages a sense of sight. The sense of hearing is engaged through hearing the word and through music. That engages our sense of hearing. Our sense of taste is through communion with with taking the body and blood of Christ through the bread and wine. The sense of touch is very tactile. It's holding the hymnal in your hand. It is hugging the person next to you. The one sense we don't engage very often is the sense of smell, and that's where incense comes into play. Incense has been a part of liturgy going back centuries, even millennia. If you look in the Bible, in Psalm 141, verse 2 is, let my prayers rise up like incense before you. Incense was used in the temple. It was used in synagogues. It's supposed to engage that last of your five senses and really connect you into worship. And like I said, a lot of high church Catholics still use incense. It's still very prevalent in the Orthodox Church, and some high church Lutherans use it. I had some limited exposure to it growing up. I generally didn't like it, but I'll get to that later. When I went on internship, my supervisor there, he liked to use incense for Advent and Lent services, for the midweek evening services on a Wednesday, and I really grew a much bigger appreciation for it at that point. So, reason for I didn't like it. I would have a sort of, not really allergic reaction to it, but I would start coughing. I could feel my throat starting to close up a little bit. Come to find out, it's not because I have an allergy to incense. It's because some churches will use lower grade or low quality incense that's like pine resin based or pine needle based. And the smell and smoke from that can really start to choke you up. If you get the good quality stuff that does cost a little more, it's more fragrant, it's more inviting feeling. The kind I'm going to be using today in my demonstration is frankincense, which is a very, very biblical incense. It was one of the gifts from the Magi in the Christmas story. I have a sample pack in my office that's got, I think, a dozen different incense varieties from, myrrh, Russian gardenia, rose geranium, like a whole bunch of kinds. I can't wait to try them all out. But today, I'm going to use frankincense. It's actually the most commonly used in worship. In fact, I actually not only have this little sample pack, I have a big bag of it as well because I knew I'd be using that one the most. But so today I'm going to show you all about incense in church. So like I said, this right here is called a censer. This is a very basic model censer. A lot of the ones you'll see might have like 3 chains coming up off of the lid here. And that's how the lid moves up and down. This one's a very simple single chain model. And the lid here is just, you pull up on this wood handle and you expose it. So here's how it works. Incense also needs some sort of igniter, some sort of ignition source. Most often, that comes from one of these. It's a little charcoal puck. You just light it up, it will start sparking a little bit, and once it gets nice and gray and ashy on the outside, it's hot enough then to add your incense to. So, we're gonna light this. And it goes in the bottom of the censer here. You always want tongs to light your incense, light your charcoal puck, because really you're putting a flame here, and if it sparks up, it could really hurt your hand. Now, most companies that sell you the censers will sell you fancy, brass-coated tongs that look like this. However, those usually cost anywhere between 20 to 60 bucks, depending on what brand you go with. These are basic $10 tongs I got off of Amazon because they're the exact same tongs, they're just not brass-coated. I don't need fancy brass-coated tongs to put my incense puck, to put the charcoal puck inside the censer. So, we're gonna light this thing and see what happens. Ooh, there we go. It's already getting a little smoky. That might have been a dud. I might have to go back and redo this. So we'll wait a little bit and see if this thing actually starts catching. But as you saw with the way it was, spurting, that's why you don't put it in your hand. That's why you need a set of tongs. Yeah, I think that one's a dud, so I'm gonna go and get another one really quick. Okay, so that charcoal puck was a dud puck, so I ditched it. First tossing it in the water just to be sure. I got a second puck in here. It is getting gray, but I want to show you what I add to the puck. This right here is just one granule of frankincense incense. It is so fragrant and so wonderful. I can't wait to actually make this sanctuary nice and fragrant and smoky. I think we're ready. Okay. I didn't add the whole cup in there because that would be too much. So, now it's in there. Cover this up as best you can. It should just slide right down. There we go. And as you can see, smoke is starting to rise from it. This is incense. Oh, it smells so wonderful. And the technique is you want to swing it back and forth like this. This gets the smoke going. And so the whole point of incensing is it's sort of like It's a sort of blessing of sorts. You can incense the altar. You can incense anything used liturgically in here. Ooh, nice and smoky. Or you can even incense people. Like people who are leading worship, you can go up to them and incense them a little bit as a sort of blessing. The typical number you would use is 3, but you can use any number of swings you want. 3 is the typical one because you know the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So watch now as I incense the altar. And that's basically it. And as you can see, it's nice and smoky. It makes it nice and fragrant in here. And so I know there's a bit of irony with having incense smoke in this particular sanctuary because of the history of this church with the previous building having burned down 50 or so years ago. But this is a wonderful aspect of worship. I hope to bring it back at some point in here, as long as my members will let me. But that is incense.